Well, sharpen your pencils, set up those dice, and free your mind, because we're about to build an open world. Okay, now I think I am live. I have audio, it looks like. This is my first time live streaming this through OpenWorld. Basically, what I do on the podcast every week is make a character with a guest. I will be making that by myself / with the chat if they are up to the task. I think if I'm going to pull up my character sheet that I created, I will do this. Nice. You get that sweet transition? That's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. Oh, you know what? I feel like I haven't even gone through... I did all of this stuff. I haven't even gone through, like, my intro of what... I was so flustered with getting the streaming started that I didn't even go through my regular intro for... I'm going to go back. I'm just going to, like, take it back a step. You know, I can't edit because it's a live stream, and that's fine. I don't have it all figured out yet. Okay, so here, let me just do some introductions, okay? Hello, my name is Knox Adams. My pronouns are he, him, and I am the creator, founder, president of OpenWorld. And I just want to let you know that I love you. Here on Build an Open World, we create diverse characters, accessible places, and supportive things that you can use as inspiration, or you can even take directly and use in your own fantasy RPG worlds at home. Just remember that the podcast can be found on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can be kept up to date on the latest additions to this open world. Just a disclaimer before we get started, during the discussion of the character today, there's a good chance that I will discuss a topic that I am not an expert on and may include identities that I do not identify with. I'm coming from a place of openness and respect, and if I don't get something quite right, please let me know in chat or reach out on social media afterwards, and I will update. And I think what would be cool is that when I fill this out with my guests, sometimes I go over specifically what these different options or spaces mean in depth. I mean, some of them are pretty self-explanatory, but sometimes I give examples. And then I cut those out just to save time on the actual podcast. And because if I did that every single week, then the listener would hear it every time they listen to it, which that also might get annoying. You know, for starters, I'm going to roll to see if I'm going to make a hero or a villain. So let's see. And that means I am creating a villain. Next, let's pick some ancestry. So I'm going to roll a D100 and see what I get. And you know what? If we get something that we've already made on the podcast, I'm going to roll again. Because I have pure and total power. Alrighty, so we rolled a 63 Dragonborn. We need to give our character here a background, but I'm going to roll and I'll count down. 4. Ooh, an entertainer. I like that. An entertaining villain. Okay, now we need a class. I'm wondering, let's do, because they're an entertainer, I feel like they would probably be a charisma-based class. Let's just do, and I'm going to skip out on Paladin. So let's do Bard, Warlock, Sorcerer. 1 and 2, Bard. 3 and 4, Warlock. 5 and 6, Sorcerer. And I'm going to roll a d6 to be clear on what I'm doing. We got a 2, so that's a Bard. That's what I said, yeah. So we're going to do a villain Bard. I just really want to make a Whispers Bard. I don't know if who have played D&D, College of Whispers. I'm just going to read It just feels like the most villainous of the bards. Any bard could be villainous, but most folk are happy to welcome a bard into their midst. Bards of the College of Whispers use this to their advantage. They appear to be like any bard, sharing news, singing songs, and telling tales to the audience they gather in. In truth, the College of Whispers teaches its students that they are the wolves among sheep. Let's create. I'll follow the same kind of process that I put my guests through. We have a villain here who is an entertainer. How old do we think they would be? So you know what? Actually, let's roll for it. I'm going to just keep rolling because that's the best. 6 options that we can kind of go in. This isn't a specific age like 33. I don't know why that's always my go-to example age. I think I've said that in multiple podcasts. We got 6 options for age, and there could be more if you want to split it into more specifics, but I have child, youth, young adult, middle-aged, senior, elderly, just as kind of starting off points. So I'm going to roll and see where we get. A child. Ooh, this is going to be fun. Okay. Now let's go over to body size. So this is not the mechanical, are you a small creature, a medium creature, a large creature? This is in comparison to others in your ancestry and age group and everything like that. Like, what's your height and weight compared to them? Is the body shape different? Is the muscle or fat content noticeable and a defining feature? He almost feels like, even though he has the entertainer background, he feels like he's almost kind of going to be like a charlatan as well. He or she, I don't know yet. But they're going to attempt to, I don't know if that's relating, I'm just kind of thinking now. But I see them using their kind of charm to get their way instead of kind of like overpowering with muscle. So I think they're not going to be muscly in any way. I think they're going to enjoy the finer things in life and they get that through charm. If you listen to episode 2 of the podcast, Emma, my guest on that one, put in the fact that if their sex assigned at birth is going to be relevant to their plot lines and who this character is, then you can define it. But if it's not going to be relevant and like that arc isn't something that is going to affect the game, then it really doesn't matter. And I think based on what this villain, how I see this character going, I think it's not going to matter. I think we're going to say it's not going to play a part. But their gender identity, how they identify, will likely come into play because if they're interacting and using pronouns or people around them are using pronouns. I'm going to make a cisgender female. And I think that she is also going to present very femininely too. In my head, I'm thinking of like what is that from Willy Wonka? Violet from Willy Wonka. What is her name? Violet. I want to say Beauregard or something. Is that? Yeah, Beauregard. Okay. Yes, thank you. Beauregard. Violet Beauregard. That's the kind of vibe I'm going for, but like in the full blueberry moment. That's who I see as this character. Sexual orientation. I'm gonna say this isn't important right now because they are a child and they have not defined that for themselves yet. Now that we have this, I think we can go back up and do a name for this character. I mean, I'm already liking Violet or something along those lines just to... Oh, Violette. How about Violette? Smaugrithgaard. Ooh. Let's use that. We'll use Smaugrithgaard. Let's use that as the last name. Violette Smaugrithgaard. I don't think we're gonna beat that. Because Smaug is the dragon. Is that his full... Is that the full name of Smaug? So, there are some different kinds of physical disabilities. This is from a little bit of research. I am, again, not an expert on physical disabilities or a lot of these things. But there are things like genetic disorders, like albinism or spina bifida. There's also congenital anomalies like cleft palate. You could also have a permanent injury, like the loss of a limb or a spinal cord injury. Also, visual and hearing disabilities. The whole point of this character sheet is to make intentional choices around these things. So even if we create this character and they do not have a physical disability, that's okay, but it's our choice to make it that way, where it's not the default that, oh, nobody ever has physical disabilities in D&D because that's how it always is. Because that's not true. I'm wondering if we could do something, because this is going to show my lack of knowledge about history and stuff like that, but wasn't Beethoven, didn't he have like a hearing, wasn't he deaf or something? Yeah, deaf. Okay, thank you, Fraser. Yeah, so I'm trying to think of like, what if we make Violette Smaugrithgaard also deaf? I think that would be interesting, especially given, well, entertainer. Bard relies heavily on music and spellcasting and stuff like that. So I don't know, I think that would be cool to kind of see how we can make that work. I like it. And again, pulling from like Beethoven history that I totally knew all by myself without any help. All right, so next we can go over to cognitive disabilities and neurodiversity. So neurodiversity are things like the autism spectrum disorder. You could have learning disabilities like dyslexia or ADHD. You can have intellectual disabilities like Down syndrome, accidental like brain injuries, or age-related like dementia and Alzheimer's. I'm trying to think of something that, like, if they're an entertainer, they're good with music and stuff like that. Synesthesia? What is this one? Seeing music as color. That would be a cool thing, because then because they can't hear it, they only see it. So they can basically see sound waves, almost. Deafness has added to the depth of musical cognition. Yeah. Trying to think if this would be considered a cognitive disability, though. It's described as a neurological condition. Okay. Yeah, I like that. I've never even heard of that before, so thank you for for putting that in there. And I think that also it connects with this one, and I think it would be a really cool way to have this character still be able to like communicate and take in information that's being said to them, or hearing music and all that stuff, because they can like see the sound waves almost. And I know it's not that intense, but we're like amplifying it through magic. Let's move down to mental health conditions. These are things like anxiety disorders, mood disorders, psychotic disorders, eating disorders, OCD, PSTD, impulse control, and phobias. Because I'm going back to now Violette Beauregard from Willy Wonka. And I'm trying to think if that's like an impulse control. Like, Violet was very self-entitled, bordering on megalomania. Not sure if there's a spectrum of that. Fraser, I feel like your favorite movie is Willy Wonka. You know everything. Ooh, no, I like that though. I feel like that makes sense. They're also like, we're making a villain. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. Not that everyone who has megalomania is a villain, just to be clear. See, this is why it helps to have very smart friends, because they bring in a lot of really cool information. Illness. Well, I think we'll choose for this character to not have an illness right now. So these four, which are race, culture, religion, and language, and the associated ones around them, I like to pull these and kind of think of things in the real world that I am pulling inspiration from to influence how this character acts, looks, believes, sounds like, etc. So like things with race, this is even like if you're playing characters with skin, because our character currently has scales, so it's a little different. But with this one, if you're playing a character with skin, then just because every current fantasy or a majority of the current fantasy media that exists portrays elves looking a certain way, doesn't mean they always have to. And that's your choice to choose, and they don't all have to look like Legolas, basically. But since we are making a Dragonborn, they have scales that can be any color. And I think if we're going full violet, I feel like we go violet scales. Then we can go over to culture and ethnicity. I think we go like the culture is like spoiled rich kid. Is that a culture? That's their culture. Is Beethoven Austrian? Well, that is not a question that I would ever know, but you know who would? Google. Beethoven was a German composer and pianist. Born in Germany, died in Austria, I think. Because now I'm trying to think of like that Beethoven movie that we were forced to watch in like band in high school. The resources to go about and do their own thing as a child and not let their parents know. And I almost feel like their parents might not even be aware. German, Austrian. Maybe instead of giving her a distinct accent, it's kind of like a mesh of those two. And I don't know what that is right now, so if I was to do that, I would have to like practice that. Yeah, Hazel, the Mozart was a spoiled rich kid, full of himself because he was super talented. Yeah, like what is that time period called when they were all? Y'all know what time period when those composers the classical period? Like it's not medieval. Like I feel like this character grew up with a tutor and like learned how to play piano. Yeah, all those things. I think that makes sense. And then religion and ideology. Again, this isn't the specific religion that is going to be played in game because every game could use a different pantheon of gods. What this is like how do they interact with their god if they believe in one? And is it pulling from inspiration from the real world? I don't think she believes in a god. Atheist. Probably her family does. Oh, is agnostic a better term versus atheist? So her upbringing, I think she was a spoiled rich kid. Upbringing is more like the long-term how she was treated, experience that Violette had, where the life experience I see more as like the defining moments. So I feel like that like a defining moment is probably when she like learned she could see like the sound waves and stuff like that and use that to cast spells and to use magic. Because I believe that she would be a spoiled rich kid who couldn't really figure everything out because she saw the world differently. But then once she figured out how to use that ability, like use that to her advantage. Relationship, nope. Socioeconomic status, very well off. Privilege, was born into money. So that is an inherent privilege. They have the ability to use magic. A pretty interesting character right now that like, and again, we don't have to go into all the details about what this character has done to make them a villain, but I think there's enough here that if anybody was to ever use this character in a game, then they would have that ability. Just want to let you guys know that, as always, you can find a character sheet for and a visual representation of what we think Violet may look like at openworldrpg.org/podcast. That will be out on Friday. Also, there you can find any additional resources that we used. Most of the resources that we used came from chat specifically, so there might not be any resources there. But you can also find a preview of that information on our socials later this week by searching OpenWorld RPG and looking for the D20. Thank you so much, chat, for being here with me today and helping me build a more open world. And thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week with a new guest, hopefully, to help me create a new character as we continue to build an open world. I love you all. Bye.